How do I know if an emotion is mine? It's a great question. Oh, it's a challenging question because understanding what our emotions are is such a subjective experience. It's so personal, you know? And the way I relate to my emotions is going to be different than how the person next to me does. We obviously all have like a similar baseline we all generally experience like as common, but then when we deviate from that path and go on our unique journey, like things start to get really specific and nuanced. So I'm going to try to open up some of my process in this. One of the things that made me recognize that I was experiencing emotions that weren't mine was when I would have a reaction to a comment or a circumstance or a situation or a detail that came up that stuck out, like deviated from how I would normally respond to something like that. For example, I might generally love seeing a certain kind of movie or going to a certain kind of restaurant or whatever. And then if that detail comes up and I feel strongly against it, and I logically know and can reference and remember, no, I actually feel positively about the thing. So I'm being objective about this, right? I'm like, yeah, there's something going on here that I don't think is me because I actually feel positively about this thing. So why do I hate that restaurant? Or why do I hate this person talking to me? Or whatever, right? When there's that kind of a discrepancy, that to me is a sign that this might not actually be what I'm experiencing. I'm picking up something else. It doesn't mean that's the case, right? So you guys, one of the things that I despised about the feeler community in the environment that I'm in was a lot of people seem to be victims to their emotions, and they're pretty emotionally irresponsible. They talked about their emotions as if they weren't their fault or they didn't have responsibility for that stuff, and they always tried to blame it on somebody else. Always is too strong. Often they would try to blame it on somebody else, something else to justify why they're going through this little fit. And I didn't like that because it came across as really passive and irresponsible, and I just couldn't embrace that as a value in my life, right? So once I got past my offense and judging these people and started recognizing how tumultuous and how much of an upheaval that can be, I was like, I think I can get where they're coming from. I don't think some of those conclusions are appropriate, but like I can identify with the experience. Another thing that really sticks out to me when I'm recognizing that I might be experiencing an emotion that isn't mine is a sharp change in mood when it's drastic and out of nowhere. You know what I mean? Again, you have to realize like your mind is going to like logically, naturally try and correlate the feeling you have to a detail you've experienced, and you, without further examination, you might just accept that maybe you're just mad at this person, or maybe you didn't eat enough lunch today, or whatever. And sometimes that might actually be the problem. But there are other times where actually your mood shifted, not because you didn't eat enough or not because that person's upsetting, but because you're experiencing something going on in an atmosphere, or because someone is particularly experiencing the thing that you're picking up and it's not yours. And so that drastic shift, the mood shift, I like to call it a slip sometimes, when it just slips and it like jaggedly changes. That's another like obvious like sign to me, like something else is going on. I want to pay attention to that. And so again, the self-awareness piece here, super helpful, like almost essential to being able to navigate these things. But when it shifts quickly, that's another way to recognize like, yeah, this is probably not me. And then also, one thing that I think helps me recognize that it probably is mine, this isn't like a safeguard, I'm just letting you in on my process. If I experience a strong, especially a negative emotion, and I'm immediately trying to blame something else or someone else for why I feel this way, I'm like, yeah, this is probably not someone else's. I'm already trying to justify or cover myself on why I'm feeling this thing, which means it's likely mine, and I just don't want to have to admit it. I don't want to embrace the humility it's going to take to look at the thing or the responsibility or whatever. And so to me, in my process, I'm not saying this is true for everybody, but for me, I've noticed if that's my propensity, if that's my motive, I just immediately want to like pin it on something or someone else. I'm like, this is probably my emotion. You know what I mean? I don't have that kind of ownership over things that aren't mine. And so if I don't know where something came from and I have no idea why it's there, and I'm gladly willing to express it and I'm not trying to defend myself, that's another telltale sign for me that this is probably not mine, right? That I'm not picking this up from my life. Hopefully that stuff's helpful, but that's like some stuff that I know that I go through to help pinpoint where things are coming from or their origin or why.